Good afternoon and welcome to another interesting edition of your favorite current affairs program, Frontline. Coming to you live from NTA Benin Network Center, Channel 7. Now, Edo State government conducted election into the 18 local government and 192 wards in the states. The election, according to the timetable of the Edo State Independent Electoral Commission, was supposed to commence at 8 in the morning and end at 2:30 in the afternoon. However, reports from the field show that not only did materials arrive late to most polling units across the 18 local government areas of the state, but also voting was delayed in most of the polling units. Also, there are reports of harassment, intimidation, voter suppression, especially members of the opposition political parties. The opposition political parties allege that their members were attacked and forced to leave voting centers in some of the local government areas and wards in the state. Although there are some wards and local government areas where the exercise held under peaceful atmosphere. However, some political actors and members of opposition political parties are already protesting the outcome of the election, which they say fell short of free, fair, credible, and peaceful polls. Justice James Oyomire-led ETSEC promised them prior to the polls. Today on Frontline, we have a public affairs analyst, Christopher Ojekere, to analyze some of the issues emanating from yesterday's council election. Mr. Ojekere, it's a pleasure having you on Frontline this afternoon.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon.
All right, let's start this way. Against all doubts and skepticism, the Edo State local government election has been held yesterday. How do you feel about this election, being one of the Edo citizens that yearned for this election to take place?
Well, thank you so much, especially as you have said, against all doubts and skepticism. It's a long-awaited elections, and I remember Justice Oyomire giving us several reasons why the election was delayed from 2022 up until now, including court cases and different kind of issues they had with the political parties and then with INEC itself. But eventually the election held yesterday across the states, and as I understand it, results have been declared, and many results had actually come in before, this final declaration. So as an Edo citizen, I can't be happier than to have that at least the third tier of government, which is the local government area, is now going to be represented in the governance of the state. We usually say, and it is correct, that the third tier of government is the closest government to the people, and people had always yearned that we should have that tier of government, functioning, because that is when the needs of the people, especially in the rural areas, can be addressed, and the people will have a voice in governance. And so right now we are happy that give and take. We have local government chairmen, we have councillors who will voice the voice of the people to the government at the center. That is, by center, I mean the state government, and to escalate it to the national level. So we have all of the tiers of government represented now. So I'm very happy about that.
All right. You were involved in the election yesterday, I guess.
Yes, by way of being a voter.
Okay, by way
yes.
Your level of involvement is being
a voter, exactly.
So you participated by voting.
Exactly.
Can you tell us your impression of what happened yesterday in Edo State?
Yes, I think I can only glean those impressions from things I have read and things I have heard, and being an interested party, by that I mean somebody interested in democracy and the fact that democracy should work. I put a lot of calls, because you are not allowed to live around your polling area to go and interfere in what is happening in other polling areas. So the best you can do is to put calls to eyewitnesses who are voting in other centers to say, hi, it's your center and what's going on there. So, and I did that. And to the best of my knowledge, and, I'm very happy, I read the governor when he voted in Edo State, in Ward 4, in the Red local government area. He said he was happy with the turnout and the election was peaceful. I read the deputy governor from another end, another senatorial area, which
That's
is Edo
Edo
North.
North.
Yes, saying that it was peaceful and he was happy with the turnout. And several people have said they were happy with the turnout. And in my polling unit, of course, I went with my commissioner, who is the commissioner representing my constituency and my local government. We went to our polling unit together, and then she voted. We were happy. Now, but there have been complaints. There have been complaints from other people who feel shortchanged, who feel rather they have their complaints. I'm not to be their mouthpiece, but they have had their complaints about what they think the election is. But one thing that impressed me, for which I was very happy, is that there was hardly violence in any of the polling units. Of course, you always have skirmishes, you would have people quarrel. It's almost becoming a tradition in our elections. But those kind of violence that mar election to the point where you will begin to regret democracy, we didn't hear that kind of thing, or at least I have no knowledge of such thing. So to that extent, I was happy, with what happened yesterday.
All right. It appears these logistical issues resulting in delay in voting and late arrival of materials have become a recurring issue in every election in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Is there no way we can surmount such challenges, considering that EDSEC, for instance, had more than 1 year to prepare for this election? Don't you think they could have found a way of ensuring that this election started on time and ended by 2:30 in the afternoon like they proposed?
Yes, you see, I became careful long time ago, and yesterday I had the reason to renew my carefulness about criticizing institutions and criticizing people. As the Indian man would say, until you wear the moccasin, you will not know where it hurts most. Yes, so elections are put in the hand of an institution, INEC in the federal and EDSEC in the case of Edo State, for instance. What we people in the civil society do is, after you have an election like this, we sit down to analyze the elections based on data from observers sent out into the field, and then draw hypotheses, look at what happened here, what didn't happen here. It's on the basis of that we make criticisms or we make judgments. But I think that it's become a Nigerian problem, just as you have said. And I think that Nigerian institutions ought to work better. The questions to ask really is, what are the issues that institutions need to surmount for them to be able to perform optimally? These are things that we think government should address their minds to. And that would always come from when institutions give their reports. For instance, if you take INEC, which is the federal electoral body, it usually was heavily criticized up until this past election. Now, as far as processes go, before the election proper, Nigerians had started praising INEC, from the electoral reforms and money released to them, timetable release, and all the other things that they did. It was wonderful. But to the shock of everybody, that seamless process, it wasn't lack of material or whatever now that has made Nigeria to begin to complain about that seamless process. It was the action of the personnel, the factor, so the human factor, that led to why Nigerians are protesting and complaining that they didn't vote for the president, and we have issues and it's still in court till today. So we have two areas to look at this. First of all, we look at the procedures and the money available, the materials, was money given at the proper time and all of that. It could just come from government and you are blaming the institution. The institution may be ready to do their work and government have not done proper funding at the proper time. Because to announce that there will be funding doesn't mean that it has been released. Now, if all of that has been settled, that the government gave proper funding at the time it should give proper funding, then the head of the institution and the management of the institution should be asked, should be called to question. If there was sabotage somewhere, and then all of that will be. It is only when we do this holistic, analysis at the end of the election or at the end of every election cycle, then we take note of those things we have considered, fallbacks or drawbacks or disadvantages to correct them in the next election. That's the only way we can make progress. To keep repeating the same problem election to election, that won't make any progress at all. So I think that we need to watch. We need to find out what happened. We need to find out, what went wrong with the processes, and then be able to improve on it going forward.
All right. In
Yes.
essence, you are trying to say that there are so many actors involved in the conduct of an
Of an
examination.
election.
That takes us to the next question.
Yes.
We experienced some skirmishes, like you mentioned earlier. I wouldn't say there was much electoral violence, but it still shows that political tolerance, our politicians, they are not tolerant of other political party members. And that was why we had some allegations on attack, intimidation on other political party members, to the extent that some of them said they were not allowed to be in the voting centers.
In fact,
What do you make
in fact,
out of this
yesterday
kind of situation?
I witnessed two incidents that made me very careful now about Nigerian and about Nigerian reports and testimonies given by Nigerians. The first one was where I was standing, and somebody had voted. I don't want to mention the person. A high government official had voted, and then one young man from the line just came up and said, I don't know what he started challenging the INEC of the ESEC officials. Now, from all the quarrels, it was clear that his assumption was that that person who voted was not of that polling unit, because he didn't know. Because the person was a stranger, not in their community. He came from the outside, but from the community, and that's the polling unit of the person. So he had assumed that the person's name was not in the register. It took quite the intervention of so many people to just get him to cool down his emotion before we can even address the real issues. And I was standing there and I was watching. And I was thinking, if there was a pressman here, he would have gone out to say, so person voted who was not there, and that was what led to this crisis. Now, just as I left there to the junction where I went to get something to take care of my stomach, there was a fight. And the fight was based on an allegation that the chief of the community had collected money and he was allowing heavy lorry loads to pass through the road and runs through the community. They were afraid that the lorries would destroy the road the way they have destroyed the federal road. And there was such a big fight based on that allegation, not substantiated by anybody. And I had stood there and witnessed all the things, and when the lorry was given permission, because the mala had appealed that the ram they had in the vehicle were dying, and so they should please let him pass. So they allowed the vehicle that had two rams to pass. Another said they have taken money, and it led to a fracas. So when people begin to report things, if you conduct yourself well in the polling unit, if you took your time and you took your turn, there are official ways, if you have grievances, to pass your grievances through. People allow themselves to be too emotional during election day. You need to see in the rural community the way people are going up and down with bike. You would think it's something that it's not a festival. It's a solemn thing. You are going to exercise your franchise. So go quietly to the polling unit and vote. If you observe anything, you have agents. If a particular political party is causing infraction to the system, the rest of you agents, do you have a uniform testimony on that? If all of you have a uniform testimony of that, it's a strong case to present officially. So there is no reason at all why people should be fighting in polling units and allowing their emotions to boil over. It's a very wrong attitude to elections.
There were some other things, issues raised concerning the level of security arrangement made for this election. I think some people argue that within the voting, where people are voting, armed security men are not supposed to be there. But from our reports and what we saw from the field, the security, we saw a lot of people going about with guns, maybe the local security network or things like that. Wasn't that scary, or a kind of putting fears in the heart of prospective voters? Some people may see them and turn back.
Well, if you saw that, you need to take that up, because the law, they can stay at the periphery of the voting unit. They are not allowed to come into the crowd, whether it's the regular policeman or whatever policeman. They should stay at the polling unit, at the periphery of the polling unit. They will only be called when issues are getting out of hand with respect to these fightings and so on and so forth. Because we are not going to militarize our election process. It's a democratic process. We don't need guns to do the voting. So even where I was, the policemen that were there, they stayed at the periphery. They didn't come into the voting arena. So people should know. Sometimes some of these people are ignorant. They just do things, from their ignorance. When they do things from their ignorance, they should be called to question and lectured properly on what to do. So I think that's not a proper way of behavior during elections.
All right, the results have been declared.
Yes.
And the party in power in the states, PDP, has swept all the positions. They have won both the 18 local government chairmanship positions and 192 councillorship positions. Did you, looking at the political permutations and the reality before and during the election yesterday, did you see it going this way?
Well, I think I did. There's a lot of anger against the national ruling party. I mean, sometimes when people are angry, the only way they express it is through the ballot. It is going to be very difficult. For instance, I'm not here for the PDP, but it's going to be very difficult, for instance, for APC to think that they will win an election in the state. Given the situation that we have on ground, the anger from lack of palliatives, the bad federal roads you have in Edo State, it's not going to be easy. So people can say, we are shortchanged, we are all that. If you have strong argument from performance, nobody's going to be able to rig you out. So, I mean, which party is there to stop the PDP from clearing everywhere? So I foresaw that coming, and I'm not surprised that they did that.
All right, the other two major opposition parties are kicking, they don't quite agree with this, your position. They still believe that things didn't go the way they were supposed to go. And for that case, they are protesting. So what do you think should be the right channel for them to express their grievances over the election in order to maintain the peace, stability that is existing in the states?
We cannot deny them the right to protest. But, I mean, why should anybody go to the streets now? It's after you have exhausted all the other channels. You have your agents. Collect your results. If the results were announced today, when did you now get your data together that you are protesting on the street with? If you go to the street now and you ask them, why are you protesting? Someone will tell you, we were shortchanged this, and do you have evidence? Do you have clips? He doesn't have. So it's just emotion sometimes. We should learn to begin to address issues we have to believe in the system. People have gone to court in this country and upturned local government elections, upturned ward elections. I have examples. So collect your data if you think you were shortchanged. If you go to the streets and you start to protest and then it degenerates into a mob action or degenerates to some other things, fight and all of that, what have you achieved? After the energy has been burnt and the discipline have been vented, you go back home. So if you have your data, whatever, we should begin to teach Nigerians that whatever process you are getting into now, get your data. Just your phone, your Android phone can give us a lot of information. Right now, it's admissible in court. So you can get your data ready and say, look, this is the basis for which I said this election was rigged or something. And then with that data, you'll be able to pursue your case through legitimate means. I have never supported early emotional, reactions to anything, because it's just emotions. It is when you have concrete evidence that you are not able to say you are protesting legally.
But Mr. Ojeki,
yes,
you will notice that in almost, if not all the states in Nigeria,
yes,
the elections usually end this way.
Yes.
The political party in power will have their way. They will win. That's all the positions.
That's why you cannot continue to do the same thing.
Been calling for the national umpire to take over local government election. Will that make it more credible? Will that douse this kind of tension that the government in power, the party in power, manipulated? Or,
Precisely what I'm saying. Precisely what I'm saying.
Don't you think it will make it more credible when the national umpire is in charge?
Now, the most protested election in this country today is the one conducted by the national umpire. That's the most protested. This Tinubu's election is the most protested election in the country today. So, you see, those who say that don't understand. We are already angry that the federal has taken everything. Derivation, they take 52.something%. Ministry of Agriculture, what is it doing in the federal ministry? What does the agriculture I'm doing in my farm, in my village, the soil texture and all of that, what is it doing in the federal ministry? So the military, the federal is already overwhelmed. It's unwieldy. So we should begin to decentralize. We should begin to think of divestment. You are thinking of carrying the neck again and add to ESEC again and add to the next problem. So it will be too cumbersome. We already have too much in the federal. So we should begin to think of restructuring. Instead of what we should do is to insist as a people. Now, civil society here, let me throw a challenge to them. You should have credible civil society, organizations. who are believed by the people, who will know how to gather data during these kind of things. And when they present that data, any reasonable man will say, look, this is solid argument. And then they will have the buy-ins of the people. If you don't have that, it's a civilian regime. You're going to have civil society. That's how we want to proceed. We don't want this military happening. Some people are celebrating it. I'm not celebrating it. They're celebrating it because it's a way to ease your emotions. But when those military guys are there in the next 3 months, you will regret. Nobody to fetter them. So democracy must be made to work. And it's the civil society that must make it to work. The avenues of democracy must be exploited. The reason why we are seeing all these kind of things is that people are losing faith in the institutions. People are saying, I mean, if a federal government will say, we will do this, go to court. It was a very careless statement. Are you following? So it's saying that we have the court, we will do as we like with the court. The judiciary should have redressed that statement. Now, the court still remains. I still have confidence in the judiciary. If the federal can muscle the judiciary, you in the state, you can go to court and try it out. All of that are better ways to redress situations and address situations than mob demonstrations on the streets.
All right, but looking at the election yesterday,
Yes.
don't you think that there are some areas that need to be improved on for future local government elections?
Oh, certainly. We've discussed them. We've discussed late arrival of materials. You mentioned that, and you said, how are we going to redress that? And I started to say the institutions have to come up with reasons why you should be accountable. It's an institution. You should be accountable to the people. We expect INEC report and tell us, SEC report and tell us, okay, this is the reason why we were not at local, polling unit at time. We need that kind of report. Then we interrogate that report. It's on the basis of that we interrogate it, and we come up with our argument and say, you were not here at this time, you were not here at this time. That's
we should be talking about
solutions and how to improve on the system so that next time we won't have. Yeah, that's exactly what we should be thinking about.
I think early preparation has not always proved that the election will be hitch-free or something like that.
And that is why
because
you need.
even INEC too, they experience similar things.
That's why you need trainings. You need trainings for the staff, for ad hoc staff and regular staff, and people should get punishment for being lackadaisical to their duties to which they are appointed or elected to do. Now you don't hear that any INEC staff is punished for anything. You also don't find out after elections what could be responsible for why certain people arrive late and all of that. There are certain impediments. For instance, I got a report I cannot substantiate of how some policemen had hijacked the materials going to Akoko Edo local government area and all that, and I got that report and I called one or two people and said, look at what I have heard. Now you don't hear. I didn't hear from that local government area. Did they get the right thing? What happened? You don't get that kind of thing in the public. So those kind of things should be collated. Those are the data I'm saying. When you have such data, civil society takes that up against whichever institution that is found to be
all right. Finally,
short in its duties. Yes.
The local government election was conducted yesterday.
Yes.
The next election will be the Edo State governorship election in 2024. What does the yesterday's election portend for that governorship election in 2024?
Well, first of all, that one is going to be the interest for 2024 will be hugely more than the interest you have here. It's also going to be conducted by the National Electoral Body. Okay. And then you're also going to have a more keen context because everybody is involved in that, so to speak. So yesterday's election, it's a different ball game, it's a different setup, it's a different context. Cannot really be used as a preamble. But with respect to voters' turnout, I was happy with the turnout I saw yesterday. There were a lot of voters pouring out. So I'm sure 2024 is going to experience a huge turnout of voters because you need that voters' turnout to be able to really correct some of these systems. If voters show more enthusiasm towards elections, then the umpire will know that they have greater responsibilities to ensure that those elections reflect the will and the wishes of those voters.
All right, yes. Thank you, Mr. Christopher Ojaikere.
Thank you so much.
Spending time to analyze some of the issues arising from yesterday's local government election in Edo State.
Yes.
To you, our viewer, we are glad to know that you're still there with us, enjoying the discussions from our able guests here. We want you to keep a date with us the same time next week for another interesting package on Frontline. This is where we leave you for now. Bye and happy Sunday.